So before we dive into anything further, I want to start off with each of your beginnings, please. May I ask each of you to share a little bit about your journey and how you got into this place? Nelson, if you go first, please.
Well, first, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? No? No, no, no. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say salam alaikum for being here. I would never imagine in my life that I would be sitting here, in front of everyone and giving a talk. So I want to thank you and everyone that's been putting this amazing event together. My journey started when I was, a little boy where I wanted to play football. Football was my thing. And
Not sure about the Chelsea, though.
So football was my thing, and unfortunately I had an injury. So then my sister, she was in the UK, and I'm originally from Portugal. I traveled to the UK because obviously football wasn't a thing. I got injured. And then I knew no English whatsoever, but I knew that my dad always used to tell me, Nelson, study, study, study. But as a young boy, you're like, Dad, come on, go away. You don't know what you're doing. But it turned out that it was absolutely right. So I then, worked in several jobs, factory job, cleaning jobs, because obviously, I knew nothing about the world. I was just a young boy. But inside me, I knew that I needed to move to London. So at the time, I was living outside London. I needed to move to London because I came from a big city, but I knew that something in London was here waiting for me. So I came to London, then worked in a few jobs, cleaning, Tesco, and then I'm like, okay, so I don't think this is working out, so I need to study. So then I got a job. I was working as a cleaner, 5 in the morning, would wake up, go to work, and then go to college. And at college, I still remember the times where I was basically an adult with a bunch of 17, 18 kids, and they used to make fun of me because I couldn't even pronounce 1,340, for example. But I knew that my only way out was to work hard. So finished my college, managed to get the best grade, and then got into King's College, studied computer science by accident, actually, because I was about to study travel and tourism. And that's basically how I got into tech. And then obviously, I never knew about coding. I found things very difficult. And for me, it was about, now that I've learned coding, how can I make it easy for others on the same boat to understand programming in a simple and yet fun way? And that's basically how everything started.
It's a journey that a lot can probably relate to in this room, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing, Mo.
Thank you. Just testing the mic. No. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So my name is Muhammad Tahir. A quick little intro about myself. Unlike Nelson, I did not like football growing up at all. I don't know if there's anyone here, growing up as a kid in London, not liking football instantly marginalized me. I was more the kid who was staring up at the sky, looking up at planes. I loved planes, I loved aviation, and I kind of knew that was where I wanted my life to go. It was the thing that just excited me the most. But coming from a Muslim Iraqi background, I remember going to one of my uncle's house once, and I told him, he asked me the question. He was a brain surgeon. And he was like, Muhammad, what do you want to be when you're older? And I was like, I really want to get into aviation. And his face kind of changed, and he looked at me and he said, come, take a seat. Sat me down and he said, look, Muhammad, let's get the facts straight. Your name is Muhammad, you're an Arab, and you're a Muslim. They don't hire Muslims in aviation. Right? 9/11's just happened. It's a bit of a sticky situation. Become a doctor, become a dentist, be anything, but just no one's going to give you a job. Don't waste your time. But I'm a rebellious kind of person. Tell me something is not possible, and I'm like, okay, watch me. So I decided to study aerospace engineering, graduated. I got a job at Heathrow Airport. Hands up if you've flown in and out of Heathrow Airport ever in your life. Okay, so all of the systems that are behind the scenes that actually make the airport work, I got a 3-year graduate program that gave me a chance to explore all of them. Like, how do they actually work? How do airports actually get pieced together? And I found it so interesting. I used to go home and speak to my family. Actually, Hawra, who's just in the crowd over here, I once sat down with her and I showed her the pictures on my phone. I'm like, look at how cool this is. And she goes, why don't you share it online? I'm like, nah, who's gonna care? Seriously, who's gonna care? She's like, just do it, just try it. I started sharing these videos online about what happens behind the scenes at Heathrow Airport. And within a number of years, my following grew and grew and grew until one day I actually overtook Heathrow Airport's official channels. And I was that kid called Mohammed. Thank you, I appreciate it. And that's from a kid who was told they don't hire Muslims in aviation, right? And I kind of made it my mission to find other Mohammeds out there who are, maybe love this industry but have no idea how to get into it because it's kind of a black box. It's kind of something that's not accessible. And I teach them all about the aviation industry through content on their phone, and it's purely educational, snippets of information that inspires young people to want to pursue a career in aviation. And now I work with the UK government and governments around the world to be able to do that more often because there's an aviation skills crisis, and we're trying to inspire more young people to join the aviation sector. And my focus is all through socials on that. So quit my job at Heathrow Airport, and now I do this full time as the airport guy. That's me.
Amazing, thank you. We'll unpack that a little bit more, but Shireen, can I ask you as well?
Yeah, Assalamualaikum. I'm Shireen. So my journey's not as interesting as these guys, but straight after university, I joined a graduate program in London. I was basically in finance, left it. It was kind of like the typical toxic corporate culture. And around the time it was COVID, so I went into something completely different. I acquired a small printing business on Depop and scaled that up. Obviously, e-commerce was booming. So we were working with a lot of creators on gifting kind of collaborations. And there was a couple of creators who had very big followings. And one of them we did a merch line with. So we created an account to just handle her orders. And what we found was a lot of brands were reaching out for kind of gifted sort of, PR gifts. Now, this creator at the time had 3 million followers. And at the same time, the whole BLM movement was getting a lot of hype and traction. So I kind of thought, hang on a minute, why is she just getting inbound inquiries about gifting? The more I read into the influencer wage gap, the more I realized there is a gap in the market. There was a lot of content creators, especially, from ethnic minority backgrounds who have something to say and should be getting paid. So I unofficially kind of fell into managing her. And then what happened was the more I was kind of working with brands and kind of in conversation with them, I realized that there was a real need for fair representation and creators weren't getting opportunities. And so SoShare was founded as an agency. So I don't come from advertisement or media or PR background. I studied politics and IR at University of Manchester. So really, I didn't know anything about this. It was more learning on the job. And and this is where we are now.
Amazing, thank you. Can we get a round of applause? What incredible, incredible journeys. So I just want to kind of touch upon your Muslim identity now in all of the different kind of elements that you've just shared, right? Because for many Muslim creators or founders in the room, identity usually isn't a filter to soften, right? A lot of us in this room, hopefully, inshallah, it is the foundation that they stand on, and they're very, very proud of being Muslim in this space. But putting your identity out there, publicly and proudly, that can come with some pressure, and also with some scrutiny, right? And this is where everyone's go-to buzzword comes in. And I'm a marketer, but I'm going to say this as well: authenticity. How many of you have heard, just be yourself online, look, just be authentic. And that gets thrown around so often. But as a marketer in this space, I assure you, it's not fluff, right? In a world of content overload, trust is the currency of success, and authenticity earns it. So for creators, authenticity, for these guys, it's just not a vibe. It's a vote of confidence in what your story brings to the scroll. And that confidence, that is what builds trust. So Nelson, I'd like to ask you first. You've created a 1 million subscriber platform. You're teaching people around the world how to code, but you've also built a real business, one that's helping companies and universities rethink how they teach tech. And you've said London, as you've mentioned already, has played a big role in that journey. And since we're at MTF London, how has this city shaped your path, and how has your Muslim identity influenced the way you show up both as a founder and as an educator?
So I think for me, coming from I would say poor background. When my mum and dad, they came from Guinea-Bissau, that's where originally we're from. It was a bit tough for us, and I would never imagine in a million years that I would one day work for Canary Wharf, for example.
Yeah.
You know, when I came to London, I remember driving through London, I would see all these buildings, I was, wow, you know, what people do in terms of getting there. So I knew that I needed to come to London. For some reason, I knew I had to come to London. And London, for me, has been a place where it doesn't matter if you're black, it doesn't matter if you're Asian, Hindu, whatever. It doesn't really matter. There's opportunities here for you. Whereas, for example, in Portugal, if you have an African name or a Muslim name, even in France as well, it can be really difficult. So I've been really privileged to work with, you know, MDs and, you know, quite senior people. And when I'm around these people, I can see that there's no this thing of you don't belong here.
As a Muslim, did you feel comfortable?
Very comfortable, very comfortable. And I would even say sometimes, you know, we'd have conversations, and they would bring up Islam and you know, the sayings of the Prophet that I didn't even know. So I was like, wow. And this is how, you know, I was like, you know, I feel like, you know, it doesn't really matter if I'm Muslim. There's a way for me to succeed. So I think London, for sure, I think obviously, you know, as you're young, you don't see the opportunities that London has to offer. So I've got my brother here. We always talk about, you know, kids. We've got kids. And our kids, they take everything for granted these days. But if you really, truly understand the benefit of being around, you know, if we look around today, you know, we've got people from all different backgrounds. You know, Brother Peter coming all the way from Australia. And yeah, London is just a place where the opportunities are very, very big, and you can succeed, you know? As a Muslim, absolutely, absolutely. Now, I know there's things where, you know, as you grow, you have a family, maybe it's not the best place to raise your kids, but for young people starting out there, I think London, it's the place to be, basically.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for sharing that, because we always get told, yeah, we need to go to San Francisco. So yeah, thank you. So coming to you, Mo, your storytelling, like you mentioned, breaks down complex engineering and aviation, but you also show up on your feed with your Islamic values and purpose, you know, quite proudly. And I want to ask, how has that authenticity helped you build trust with your audience and continues to inspire the next gen in an industry like aviation, and like you mentioned, especially in a sector that hasn't always been kind to Muslims?
So I'll give you an example. I like to talk in stories because I think they're just more memorable. There's a young girl called Roshan Chowdhury. Now, this is a young hijabi girl who really wants to be a pilot. And this girl's like dream is to be a pilot, but she's a hijabi girl. I believe she lives in Manchester or somewhere up north. And I remember this girl started following me, and I saw her feed. She's uploading stuff on her feed as well about her journey. And I just saw like a young Muslim girl who was doing stuff. And I just sent her a message. I'm like, look, keep up the great work. When she replied to me, she said, Mo, your videos, because look, I do all the educational stuff on my feed, but in my stories, I speak very openly about the struggles of it, what it means to be a Muslim. Very, very openly. I talk about the fact that, like, for example, 2 weeks ago, I got invited to a networking young people's aviation dinner. Like, they're launching this networking event for young aviators, and where's the venue? What do you think they chose as a venue for this networking? A pub. They chose a pub as a networking venue for young aviation, like, inspiring kids. And I very openly on my stories, I'm like, what in the world? Why would you choose a pub? And I like to speak about these things because that same young girl messaged me. She'd be like, oh my God, you have no idea how painful it is to have to go to these events and go to these pubs. So just by showing up as a Muslim and being able to vocally speak about my Islam, I know that there's young people who see that, and that gives them confidence. They see themselves in that. That gives them confidence to step into a room, and if there's alcohol, be able to say, maybe I don't want to be in that room, or actually, you know, bring their Islamic identity to the room rather than just leave it at home and can't step in without that Islamic identity. So the reason why I do that is because number one, it feels most natural to me, and I never want my platform. I remember there was a fork in the road where I had to decide, like, am I going to leave God in or out of this? And I was having a really difficult moment about what to do with my page because it's purely aviation. And I was kind of having this moment. I'm like, I don't know whether to talk about God because I was having a really deep moment. I didn't know whether to share it on my stories. And I open my Instagram feed, and the first thing I see is a friend of mine called Milimo, who's a Christian. And he just put up on his story, just a black screen, just saying, I love Jesus. And I'm like, how come he can love Jesus, but I can't love Allah openly? And that was the moment the penny dropped. I'm like, no, I can. But I need to tell myself that, and I need to show up with that. Alhamdulillah, that's...
Amazing, thank you. And finally, Shireen, you work with brands that want meaningful creator partnerships, right? So from your point of view, what is the ROI when a creator shows up fully, like Mo does, as themselves?
Yeah, so before when you were talking about the word authenticity, I feel like it's plastered everywhere on LinkedIn. It's become like this corporate jargon. And it's like, okay, what do you mean by being authentic? And I think the kind of creator economy has shifted, especially since COVID. So for brands, they're looking at creators who are authentic, who are real, who are relatable. And we've moved away from like overly polished content. People don't want to see aesthetic pictures. People don't want to see like, you know, you going for your Pilates and your matcha every single day. Because for the most, you know, for the most common person, like for most of us here, we work, we don't have that time off to do whatever we want. So for brands, they want to see that engaged audience that can relate to the creator. That doesn't mean you need to go, you know, overly personal and share every single detail about your life. It's just being real and having that voice. This is something that we really kind of hone in on when we're taking on creators, is having voice, purpose, and value. Like, what is the point of your content? Like, with Mo, he obviously educates. So is it educating? Is it inspiring? Is it informing? Is it entertaining? Like, what is it? What value can you bring to the audience? And when brands see that and they see these conversations in the comments, that's who they're looking to work with. That's why they're going to invest in you. That's why you're going to get commercial opportunities. Otherwise, you dancing to the camera or, you know, showing your matcha latte, like, that's not really of any value. There's no storytelling, and that's another big one people forget, storytelling. So if you're, for example, a faceless creator, because a lot of Muslims are faceless creators, you do have value. It's, you know, you can do storytelling in your content, whether that's voiceovers or captions. A lot of people forget that. One of my exclusive talent, she is, she was a food blogger and then converted to lifestyle, and she's faceless and she's smashed it. Worked with, alhamdulillah, so many big brands like Charlotte Tilbury, Space NK, just so many. And that's purely, and beauty brands, by the way, which is like crazy because she's faceless, but it's because she can sell and she's got that ROI. So it's also can lead to amazing long-term opportunities as well.
100%. Thank you. Now, I want to build on this because this is really, really important, right? Of all the things that you've just basically touched upon, because when you lead with that identity and that authenticity and you're real and you're relatable, that builds something. It builds community, right? And from a platform perspective, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, we know community-first creators, they drive higher retention. So they've seen you, but how do you keep them, right? And that's not a niche, it's a growth engine. So let's talk about how that shows up. Mo, let me start with you. Your community spans aviation enthusiasts, students, and now industry leaders, policymakers, trade bodies, airlines, and like the whole lot, right? So what's been key to not just building, but sustaining that community as it's evolved?
So when it comes to community, there's a reason why you want to be a part of a community. Like, there's a real intrinsic need for anyone to want to say, I want to be in that space. And I think part of how I began to think about myself in all of this is, realistically, all I can do is I can bring the right people together, but the real value of the community is actually not me. I'm actually the bottleneck of the community, if anything. I'm the thing that hinders the community. I might be able to bring them together, but if I don't allow people to talk to one another within my community, I end up becoming a bottleneck. So I've invested in things like a Discord channel where what that means is people can come for me, But I want them to realize I'm not where the real value is. The value is actually getting to know one another. And what we've built is we've built platforms where they can share opportunities with one another and connect with each other rather than it just being me. So I'm maybe the magnet that brought them in, but I'm not the thing that keeps them. What keeps them is actually the friendships that they build together. But why are they there? They're there because they're gaining something. Like, it's a value add. And that value can come in the form of inspiration. That value can come in the form of an opportunity that they didn't know of before. The value can come in all shapes and all sizes. But people want to join your community because they want something that's going to actually be valuable to them. And that value can even be as simple as just feeling like they're not an outsider.
Yeah, they belong.
And they have somebody they can relate to. That relatability is enough of a thing that makes somebody want to come towards a community, especially in the niche that I'm in. There's the 3 statements that I guess summarize the aviation space, which is, what's the 3 words? It's male, pale, and stale. Yeah? Male, pale, and stale is what summarizes aviation. So when you create a place or community where we're not that, we don't have alcohol at events, instead we have chaiwala. Yeah? We don't have these corporate stuffy events. Just come in a t-shirt and a hoodie, that's what we're here for. People actually feel at home in a place like that, and then they connect with one another. And I think the real value comes from the connections that happen outside of just myself.
Amazing, thank you. Nelson, I just want to come to you actually, please. So you have started obviously by teaching code, and you've built something, alhamdulillah, much, much bigger, right? And there's a whole movement around excess and excellence. So I kind of want to ask you a little bit more about what's helped you move from views to real community engagement, because these people who are viewing your content are now customers, right? So how did that community that you've built online become so crucial to your growth as a business?
So I want to start by saying that the Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you are the ones that are the most beneficial to others. And I remember my mom, she used to always have issues with my dad because, we used to get a lot of people from Africa coming around, nowhere to stay. They just stay in the house. And my dad like, when is this going to end? And I think I got that from her, where when I started YouTube, for me, it was more about giving to others. There was anything about to do with money. It was more give, 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 give. Then I realized that a lot of people would say, hold on, how can you give a lot of free content and how do you make money? I said, you know what, to be honest, I'm on a mission on changing, the landscape of education. So for me, it's not about money. Then I started, at the time, was a Facebook group. And I think it was about 100 people, and then it grew to 2,000. I think today it's about 30,000. And I remember my first comment where the person said, do you know what, I've actually managed to secure a job with your free content. And I was like, wow, it made my day. And then one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. And the other thing that helped me a lot as well was just being myself. So, before I record the videos, I say Bismillah. People don't see that. When the first sentence that I say is, what's going on, guys? Assalamu alaikum. And I just show, this is me, I don't try and hide my identity just because I want to hide my identity. I had an issue with the guy from Free Code Camp. I think he have 5 million subscribers. And they reposted one of my videos, which was very popular. And the intro of that video was, what's going on, guys? Assalamu alaikum. And then he goes and he basically removes the bit where I say, Assalamu alaikum. So I saw that, I was like, hold on, what's going on here? And I was really, really upset with him. And then he's like, oh no, sorry, maybe the audience would think that it's a different video. I said, no, please. And then I think he just put the video back. But what I'm getting at is that people really trust you as a person, as the brand. And through that, just being myself, I've managed to establish trust in the community. So if I'm talking to someone, for example, in Spain or French or a white person, for me, I try and make them feel home. You know, I can speak Spanish, I can speak a bit of Arabic, you know, Portuguese, French a little bit. So it's more about, you know, how can they feel like me? And then if they feel like, okay, I belong here, then for them to be part of the community, it's a no-brainer. And within the community, I can see that there's a lot of people on the same boat. They get together. I have a sister from, Somali sister from, I can't remember exactly, somewhere in Europe. And she said, you know what, you've done amazing because I was stuck in this issue and I just posted on Discord and two other people, they just, you know, got together and they helped me. And yeah, it's just because I've been, you know, transparent and not trying to hide my identity and, you know, build trust.
Amazing. I think, can I just build on that and ask you a quick question, Shireen? So from your perspective, obviously, like what Nelson's just shared, how does leading with that kind of authenticity and just being yourself reshape how creators are seen and how they're valued by the community? Because you've got a lot of people watching that kind of content. So how powerful is that?
Yeah, it is very powerful. I think what sometimes creators forget is that you have a platform because of your following, because of your community. And, you know, without like us content consumers, they wouldn't have a platform. So the content you're putting out there has to be of value and you almost have to like give back. So if you're not creating content that's going to resonate and, you know, allow you to build that community, you're not going to grow. Whereas if you're authentic and you're real, and I'm going to use a context of kind of what's going on in the world. And it might sound a bit controversial. Some people may agree, some people may disagree. But obviously, since October the 7th, there's a lot of like brands that have come to light that are Zionist brands or affiliated with Israel. Now, us as an agency, we don't work with these brands. We're very, you know, hardcore with our research and making sure that they're not a parent company or affiliated in any way. A lot of obviously other agencies don't care about that because Zionist paycheck is huge. It's huge, right? And unfortunately, Muslim creators aren't doing their research. Their management's on. Whether they, you know, relay that, I don't know. But I think it's our responsibility as creators to do that. And the problem is then that creators lose that trust and credibility with their community. So what ends up happening is, you know, followers will comment and creators will take that as hate. And sometimes it can be hate comments. Obviously, we have to be a bit more respectful in how we relay these things. But creators then lose that community trust. So even though they're still following, they're not going to engage. Whereas if you've got someone who's doing proactive research and, you know, avoiding working with set brands who don't have the same, you know, aligned values, you're going to have much more rating, trust, credibility, engagement. You will get the opportunities. So I think, you know, you have to remember that community gave you that platform, and to maintain it, you do have to make sure your values are aligned.
Yeah, 100%. I think I kind of just want to build on this, right? So building communities is so crucial to sustain success in the content creator economy, right? And like you've just said, because they give you that visibility. So let's talk about algorithms, because one question I always get asked is, how do you make money on TikTok? How does the algorithm work? What's the trick to clocking YouTube, right? But the truth is, algorithms are modern day gatekeepers. But creators who deeply understand their audience, their community, they don't just play the game, they rewrite it. And guys, honestly, this is just free advice. If you are a creator, don't take your TikToks and put it on shorts. It does not work, right? And you can't expect it to land, because each platform has its own rhythm. The creators who learn how each of those work will unlock real visibility. Because discoverability, as these guys will allude to, isn't random, it's strategic. And once your audience, your community finds you, the real question becomes, how do you keep them? And how do you turn that into retention and then action? Because when you lead with your identity and that authenticity, like these guys have mentioned, you build trust, and that drives action. So let's just unpack that a little bit, right? Serene, I want to kind of come back to you around from the brand side of the table first. We've obviously spoken about the community. So from your experience, what are brands really looking for when they invest in creators? And why is that sustained engagement, not just for reach, but why is sustained engagement, becoming the true marker of success?
So essentially three things. You have something to say. That's what brands want to look for. Like, what have you got to say? So, I was kind of talking about voice, purpose, and value. It's exactly that. They want to see like your perspective, your experiences. They don't want, I think right now we're seeing like a lot of creators, which is great. Like the creator economy is growing, but there's a lot of like copy and paste and there's no originality. The second thing is brand awareness. So if you're someone who can get that virality and really take, your videos to a whole new level where you're getting good reach, good engagement rate, good comments in the conversation, that's very important, because when brands will come to you with commercial opportunities, it's either going to be the goal is brand awareness, get their product or service kind of shared out into this new demographic, or the final one is ROI, and that's through conversions. So if you can sell, so our creators either are on TikTok Shop or LTK or both, and these are affiliate platforms in which they will sell products, but they sell it mindfully. We're very obviously aware and conscious of overconsumption, but they will see that these creators are, using these products organically, and when they're like, oh, what's that that floor spray you're using, then they can link it to whatever Amazon or whatever it is. So brands can then see you've got sales value, you've got the brand awareness, and obviously you have a voice that your audience wants to hear, and that's why they follow you.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Mo, I want to come to you because you've turned your views also into action, and your community is heavily leaned into you. If you ever walk around with him, he always gets stopped by kids going, oh my God, you're the guy from the airport. Right. So how can you share, how you've inspired real world outcomes? So can we go back to that story when those Heathrow grads told you because they were joining because of your content? Why are these kids listening to you, and why are they trusting what you have to say?
I ask myself that all the time. So for context, I once woke up and I got a message from this kid called Mehdi who went to the same exact school that I went to when I was a kid. And he messaged me, he's like, bro, look, I'll be honest with you, the only reason I still have Instagram on my phone is because of your videos. Like, I want to get into the aviation space. I really have no idea where to start. Could you help me out? And I was like, cool, sure. We got on a call. I helped him out. Fast forward 6 months, this kid actually calls me up and he's like, bro, I just got an offer to become an engineer at Heathrow Airport. I got an apprenticeship. And I'm thinking like, wow, like a video online could transform someone's life like that. And he told me, bro, if it was like, you're from my community, I see you, you're a Muslim, and you're in these spaces and you're vocal about who you are, that's what made me realize that it was even possible. That was one example. I was once sat in a room towards the end of my time at Heathrow, a room similar to this, with every single graduate, every single apprentice, every single intern that Heathrow Airport had hired over a 5-year period. Imagine, 5 years worth of talent at Heathrow Airport was all sat in one room. And it was like the end of the event, I jumped on stage, I grabbed the microphone, and I just said quick question, who in this room decided they want to join Heathrow Airport because of one of my videos? Just put your hand up. Hands up if it was one of my videos that made you want to choose aviation and a career in aviation. 53% of the room put their hand up. 53% of a room full of young people said it was videos on TikTok and Instagram that made them choose their career. Like this thing that's in our pockets, these phones are literally shaping people's lives. And if we put on stuff on there, like similar to how you were saying, people are messaging you saying they got their jobs because of your videos. These things are actually shaping our lives and they're shaping our communities. Me and Rushan talk about this all the time, right? He's a researcher in societies and understanding why young people get inspired. If young people have a role model who they can see themselves in, like they're authentic in who they are, but also they've been able to achieve something that they don't even realize is possible, you instantly break that glass ceiling for them. Like as a kid, my dream was to get into the aviation industry and just touch a plane. Like literally I just wanted to touch an airplane. That's all I wanted. But alhamdulillah, Allah's opened up so many doors that I stand back and I'm like, If I was just a kid who thought it was never possible, and now all of this stuff is happening, think about how many more other kids are out there who just have no idea that this stuff is even possible. And by literally uploading videos on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, you can let someone know what is possible in their lives. And you can let them see it. And once they've seen it, they believe it. And once they believe it, they're more willing to take the actions. And imagine if not only do they see it and believe it, but then you also tell them, by the way, like I'm setting up an event where you guys can come and I can take you to see this stuff. 2 days ago, I took a bunch of kids with me, and it's the reason why I missed the briefing call on this, by the way. I took a bunch of like 13, 14 kids to go to Ryanair's engineering facility where they were like hands-on ripping apart aircraft. There was a girl there called Fatima, hijabi girl from Birmingham. She's like, Mo, I tell my friends and family in Birmingham I want to get into aviation. They laugh at me. They're like, how are you going to get into aviation? Forget about it. But like now I get to come to this event. Through a Discord community event that we done, I taught them how to apply for British Airways work experience. She applied all the steps that I told her. Now in December, she's got a week of work experience at British Airways. Like, we have to be the people who open up these pathways for the next generation by understanding how lucky we are that we got our foot in the door, and then holding that door open and actually giving them practical insight into what they can do to achieve what we've done. Because there's a quote in Arabic that says, Zakatul ilmi infaqah, which means the zakah, the tax on knowledge, is to pass it on. So if you're learning something and you're not passing it on, you're not paying your taxes, basically.
Thank you so much. Slightly awkward to ask this question now because you just dropped such a deep answer. Right. What does it take, Nelson? I think I want to come to you around the business side of things, right? So what does it take to sustain that kind of community when you've built that kind of engaged, leaned-in community, right? How do you keep them there? And obviously in your case, turning them into customers and to spend money, because that's a whole different conversation. So how have you sustained that? And how do you keep going?
So as I said, it's all about being yourself. And if there's one advice that I want to give to every single one of you out there, especially starting from the bottom, is when you set up your own community, have some kind of newsletter. So that was one of the things that really helped me a lot, because I was teaching on Udemy, and I remember my first month was about $40, and then $200, $500, $900, and then it kind of just stayed there. But then I'm like, hold on, so, I've got all of these subscribers, but I know that there's something out there. So because of having the emails, and this way I can now communicate with them, I can send them messages. I can say, look, we've got a free event coming around. When I speak to students, I say, do you know what, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And actually on the videos, at the end of each video, I say, if you have any issues, feel free to let me know, and we can talk. Most people will never reach out, but those that do, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know, you replied to my message, and I'm so thankful. And I'm like, yeah, whatever I say is because I really want to help you. So having emails is crucial. And I remember when I was working on a revamp of one of my biggest courses, so I had a mailing list of about 100,000, up to 100,000. And because I had emails, I had people, my first month of releasing that course, or even my first week, I made over about 20 grand just on that month. And I know that within Udemy, I wouldn't be able to do such thing, right? And then I just want to touch on my identity as well, because obviously that plays a big part in terms of collaborations with other companies. So whether you're small or big, it doesn't really matter. If you show yourself as Muslim, saying salam to the videos, don't be like, oh, maybe I'm not going to get someone to sponsor my video. Every week I get a bunch of people saying, can you sponsor my video? And it comes to a point where at the moment I cannot even handle, the amount of requests, because I'm focusing on other areas of the business. And when I had about, I think it was 30,000 subscribers on YouTube, and this was only YouTube, my first collaboration was with LG and also QuickBooks. And I remember there's a guy, he said, you know, we've seen your videos, and, you know, I show up in a meeting with a, you know, hat, and they know that, you know, this guy is clearly Muslim. And they said, we want to collaborate with you on a piece of content. How much would you charge? Me, like, I'm a newbie. I don't know, like, how to do these things. And I'm like, maybe, I don't know, like, maybe 2,000. And the guy goes, what about 10,000? What that could do for you? And I'm like, holy moly, like 10,000? Okay, you know? So I done a course for them, and then after 1 month, a company, LG, came over and they said, you know, we've seen your content again, and me, I don't shy. And I think that time, you know, I had my beard like, you know, proper big, you know, hat, and you could see like this brother is like proper Muslim, you know? Yeah, exactly, proper. But even though I'm not sure, you know? And yeah, so that second deal was about 17,000. So I was like, wow, I never would imagine that, you know, having a small community, having a small number of subscribers would open the doors for the business, which is now today. And it got to a point where I was working for Starling as an engineer there, about 4 or 5 years as a DevOps engineer. And I think it was time to move on. And then I was like, do you know what? I think at this point I'm making way more money than I'm actually making. So let me just try and go down this path. And if it doesn't work, I can always go back. And alhamdulillah, you know, ever since it's been Amigos Code and helping others.
Amazing. I just want to actually just build onto that, right? And talk about a little bit about how you turn those communities into being monetizable, right? So how do you go from a content creator to actually building a business? Because one of Socia's creator surveys revealed that 68% of Muslim creators in the 10 to 50K follower range, they can't set their own rates or they struggle with it. Many of them don't know their engagement data. And too often, creators are gifted campaigns or under unfair terms due to the lack of confidence, not the lack of capability. But we need to keep doing more to change that, right? The right monetization setup can really increase revenue about up to 47%. And look, it's not all doom and gloom. The Muslim creator economy is maturing. We're not the side characters. We're becoming founders, funders, front runners. So I want to just leave you guys with a little bit more practical advice, right, and get tactical. So how do we go from community to cash flow without obviously compromise or being sellouts, right? So Shireen, just very quickly, what practical advice would you give to creators on brand deals, pricing, and pitching, especially when they're kind of underrepresented talent? And what are your go-to principles for protecting the value, your value and your voice?
Okay, so as you mentioned, we did a Muslim creator survey, which the report is on our website. So I would advise all creators to check that out because there's a lot of information, a lot of context, a lot of insight. And even if you're not Muslim, like if you're POC, then it's still going to help with understanding. And you can reference that. Like a lot of creators who are not affiliated with us will reference this report, and brands do kind of get scared. They're like, oh, okay, like there's something out there, it's legit. And when you bring numbers into play, like that makes them feel like you're holding them accountable. A lot of the time, brands are going to try and squeeze you. Like they want everything for nothing. So in terms of like, it's a numbers game. So show your data. Data is your best friend. So if you can sell, show that proof. Through like affiliate screenshots and stuff. If you have content that's done really well, show that. Especially if you've done a paid partnership, use all of these like numbers to justify your rate card. In terms of like pitching, it is about negotiation and it is about backing yourself. So make sure you know what you stand for and getting paid fairly. And yeah, just make sure to read the terms and everything. Ask them everything, like the deliverables, if there's any usage, if there is, like how much they're putting in, how much paid media spend, is there a cap, which territory, which digital assets, because you can keep adding more money on. Exclusivity, if they want to, they want you to be exclusive for 3 months, ask who the competitors are, charge on that as well. So read your contracts properly. Obviously, if you're with management, they're doing this for you anyway. But if you're self-managed or you're starting off, like these are very important things to consider. because brands can try and be sneaky. They will add in all of these things into the contract, and next thing you know, you're getting fleeced when you could be charging like £10,000 for a whole campaign, but you've only charged £1,500. So yeah, in a nutshell, like, make sure to read everything.
That's super valuable advice. Thank you. But I just want to really quickly come to you because this story really always fascinates me, right? Because we can't always say yes for some of the challenges that you've addressed. So I'd like to ask you, so how do you handle partnerships working with different brands and companies that align with your mission, keeping your audience trust in mind too, right? Have you ever said no to working with certain people, big paychecks, because of your personal Islamic values? And this is more around like the story, if you can share.
So a large part of the work that I do is about finding talent and then taking that talent and plugging it into an organization that is doing something where they're really desperate for that talent. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an amana, and for us, each of that amana is the thing between our two ears. Our brain is like God's gift to us that He's going to see how did you use it in this world. Now, with that in mind, there are companies out there who will take your best brain cells and put them towards not very good causes. Especially in the aviation space, you have the civil aviation, but then as large as the civil aviation world is, you have another side, a darker side to our industry. Once I woke up and I saw a message on LinkedIn, and it was from Airbus's head of marketing for Airbus. And she had reached out inviting me to the launch of the brand new Apache helicopter. One of the most technologically advanced helicopters out there, but really and truly that machine is designed for one thing, and that one thing is what? What's it designed to do? Kill people. Now, this woman sent me this message, and as soon as I read it, I had this like sting. I remember the story that is what actually I use when I talk about these topics. See, when I was a kid, I was naive about like the military side of aviation. I went to an air show. There's the biggest military air show here in the UK called RIAT, the Royal Air Tattoo. And I went one of the years, and when I was standing there, I was watching these fighter jets fly over my head. And these fighter jets, they're so powerful. Like, they're genuinely marvels of engineering. Like, the amount of power they've forced into these aircraft, that when they fly over your head, they can genuinely shake you to your core. I mean, like, your soul will feel this aeroplane flying over its head. And when I'm standing there and I'm watching these aeroplanes, I was impressed. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, I take a video, and I'm seeing these things go straight over your head. And I'm seeing all these people clapping and cheering and wooing them on. And I took this video, and I went home. And I was sat with my mum. My mum was like, "What did you do today?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me show you." So I take my phone out of my pocket and I find one of these videos where this aircraft is flying right over our heads at super speeds. And I put the volume up loud on my phone and I show it to her. I'm like, "Look at this." And as I show her that video, I watch my mum's face completely change. It's as if she's seen a ghost. And I saw her like shiver in where she was sat. I said, "Mum, what's wrong? Why have you had that reaction?" And she goes, "Muhammad, the last time I heard that noise was when we were living in Lebanon for a few years and Israel was bombing our hometown. That noise for me was the sound of death." And that moment I realized, like, these machines that everyone's celebrating and cheering on, the only reason they're able to cheer them on is because they know there's no bombs that are going to fly out of it and kill you. But for our people across the world, that noise is the noise of death. And when this woman approached me about the Apache helicopter, I told her this exact story. I've stood on stages in corporate like spaces full of white people, and I tell this story because they can't take this story away from me. This is a real story about our experiences of these aircraft, and I make a stand with my voice, the voice that we have, to say, I don't want to send talented young people to come and help you design killing machines. That's not what I'm here to do. And I take that stance. And they can think what they want to think about that. But if I've been given a platform by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I've been given a voice by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have to use it in a way that's actually that's gonna actually add some sort of value to the world that isn't just getting talented kids jobs, but what impact is that gonna make? And for me, I feel like this is part of my mission, is to use my voice on my platforms to make people realize that these machines are killing machines. And I want the most talented people around the world to make a decision that I'm not gonna take my amana that God's given me and use it to help somebody else push an agenda around the world by designing these sort of machines. So I had to reply back to that woman with this. And That's the sort of decisions I have to make. I've had open conversations with people from Airbus and Boeing, and they all want to do brand partnerships. And I'm like, sorry, you design killing machines, and I'm not willing to do that.
So the moral story is, when you're a Muslim in this space, you sometimes have to make really tough decisions. And I think just moving forward as we wrap up this session, I kind of want to zoom out and look ahead, right? Because this isn't just about today's panel. It's about the movement that we're all collectively part of. We are all digital first natives, right? And Muslim creators, and these guys are examples of it, they're no longer just showing up, they're shaping what digital influence looks like. But let's be honest, in a world where discoverability can be dialed up or down, staying visible and being vocally Muslim still carries risk, unfortunately. And we've seen and shared examples of what happens when creators speak out, especially like the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So from a brand safety to shadow banning, the challenges are real, but so is the revolution. And what gives me hope is that the people that are leading this revolution are sat right in front of you. So as creators and founders who are building on their own terms, with their values at their core, I just want to ask you all to finish on, what's next? How do we future-proof this movement? And what do you think the future looks like for Muslim creators in the next couple of years, for platforms, for brands, and most importantly, for our ummah? Nelson, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think in terms of the future, I think it's going to be bright. If we look, I think Kabi Lane, he's a Senegalese brother, Hafiz of the Quran. And I think all of us here, we want to inspire others. And we want to let you know that it is possible. And Islam is one of the fastest growers, it's the fastest growing religion. And we're going to take over eventually. We're bound to be successful in whatever we do. So I'm looking forward, to be honest, in the future of creators and entrepreneurs. And look at what you've done, with Muslim Tech Fest. I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, it's looking good. It's looking
Alhamdulillah. Good. Positive.
Yeah, very positive. Very positive. Yeah.
So there's a quote which I always think about. My dad always used to tell me about it. And it was from Imam Rida, where he said, if people knew the beauty of our words, they would follow what we follow. You're talking about how there's more than ever, there's more people like joining Islam time and time and time again. Just in my own personal life, in the last 6 months, there's 4 people who I would have never guessed who've converted to Islam. 4 people. And in the Quran we get told about this, like there will be a day where people are joining Islam like waves, right? Like literal waves. Amwaja, it says in the Quran. So how are they going to know about Islam if we aren't the ones who are able to actually show them what Islam is about? And I don't just mean with our words, but with our actions. And in this world, if you want to scale visibility, it is through social media. And I know that there's people in here who can be role models, not just for our communities, but role models for an entire world. We can genuinely be role models for a world with the excellence that comes with being a Muslim. And I want to encourage people, even if you don't feel ready, even if you don't feel perfect, if you have something to say, if you have a niche that you love and you want to become, that you want to have an impact with and you want to have a purpose with, become that person who can be vocal about these things and begin to be like the lighthouse that can attract the next generations. If we have these role models and we give them a platform, then we can begin to shape narrative. I talk, again, Roshan, me and him always talk about framing. The world that we see is dependent upon the frame in which we look at it with. We can set up our frames, but it's upon the next generation to set up the frames for the generation after and the generation after. If we really want to build this wave of people who join Islam and understand Islam, it's the voices that we have that are our most powerful asset. And the amplification of our voices comes from this creator economy that we are now riding the wave of. Let's ride that wave and have as much impact as we can to our faith and to our communities with that trajectory and with that journey that we're all on.
Amazing, thank you. And Shireen?
I think the creator economy is just going to keep growing, and naturally there'll be a lot of Muslim creators. Obviously there's a lot of positive benefits to going into content creation, but I think we need to be way more responsible and conscious of what we're putting out there. I mean, kids as young as 2 are getting access to iPads and phones and young kids like TikTok, where there's a lot of filth and uncensored content. And I think as creators, we need to go a little bit beyond kind of doing a basic makeup tutorial. Like, you need to really think about what legacy do I want to leave behind, and what positive impact do I want on my community, on someone who comes across my content on the For You page. And just be more ethical as well. No matter where you're at with your following, and if you get approached by brands, do your research, stop being lazy, because a lot of these brands are unethical. They are investing in killing machines, in killing our own people. So I think the responsibility, we just need to be more aware of and be proactive in that.
Amazing. So I just want to take a quick thank you. Some really, really powerful but hopeful and positive words to wrap up on. And as I close, I just really want to end on this, right? From authenticity to algorithms, from storytelling to scale, what we've heard today proves one powerful truth. Being visibly and vocally Muslim isn't a constraint in this ecosystem. It truly is a catalyst. Our panel are examples of building trust, generating income, and scaling impact, all while staying true to who they are. And that's power. You don't have to compromise your identity to clock the algorithm. And if there's one thing you take away from today's session, let it be this. Your authenticity as a Muslim isn't just valid, it's your superpower. I promise. Jazakallah khair. Thank you to our phenomenal speakers, and thank you for all being part of this.